Close your eyes and drift back in time. The air is warm, the scent of salt drifts from the Mediterranean, and the sound of waves touches the ancient shores of Egypt. Before you lies a shining city, Alexandria, a place where marble glows beneath the sun and dreams of wisdom are born. As always, I'd love to know, where are you listening from and what time you are now down below in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Whether you're settling in for the night or just curious about where these legends came from, I'm glad you're here. Don't forget to subscribe and share it to someone who loves it too. It began with a dream, not of conquest, not of gold, but of knowledge. When Alexander the Great crossed deserts and seas, he left behind more than empires. He left behind an idea that the world, vast and mysterious, could be understood. After his death, one of his generals, Ptolemy I Soter, took Egypt as his kingdom. He looked out over the sea and imagined a city unlike any other, a beacon of learning, a sanctuary for every book, every story, every discovery in existence. And so, beside the glittering harbor, beneath the shadow of the great Pharos lighthouse, construction began. Temples rose, gardens bloomed, and within the royal quarter, near the palace itself, a new building took form, a place that would one day be known simply as the Great Library of Alexandria. But this was no ordinary library. It was said that ships entering the harbor were searched for scrolls. The words inside were copied, studied, and shared. The library shelves stretched endlessly, filled with papyrus scrolls that whispered with the voices of Greece, Persia, Babylon, India, even distant lands beyond the horizon. In these halls, knowledge was sacred. The scholars who walked its marble floors came from every corner of the world: mathematicians, poets, astronomers, physicians. They spoke in many tongues, but shared one purpose: to understand everything the human mind could reach. The library was part of a grander vision, the Mausion, the Temple of the Muses. It was both sanctuary and school, a place where thinkers lived, ate, and studied side by side. The hum of conversation filled the air, debates of stars and gods, of nature and the human soul. And as the sun set over the city, golden light spilling across the harbor, candles flickered within the library's halls. Scholars would read until their eyes grew heavy, and the whispers of parchment became lullabies. No one yet knew how fragile it all was, how fire, time, and war would one day silence those voices. But for now, Alexandria dreamed, and the dream was radiant.
Breathe in and imagine the dawn rising over the marble city of Alexandria. The first rays of sunlight spill across the harbor, and the Pharos lighthouse catches fire with gold. the world's greatest library is awakening. Within its halls, voices murmur softly, the sound of minds at work. Scrolls of papyrus rustle like waves against the shore. Ink stains the fingertips of scholars who have traveled from across the ancient world, each seeking something greater than themselves. Here, in the Library of Alexandria, the brightest minds of history once gathered. It was said to study here was to stand at the center of all knowledge known to humankind. Among them was Euclid, the father of geometry. In quiet corners, he drew lines and circles upon wax tablets, crafting the principles that would shape mathematics for millennia. His students sat cross-legged on the stone floor, their eyes wide as he revealed the simple truths hidden in the patterns of the universe. To Euclid, every angle, every curve was a doorway to reason, a language the cosmos could understand. Not far away, Eratosthenes, the philosopher and geographer, studied the sun's shadows. With only a stick, a well, and his mind, he measured the very size of the Earth, more than 2,000 years before satellites would prove him nearly exact. He called himself the measurer of all things, but his friends simply called him Beta because he was second best at everything and best at being humble. Others followed, physicians who studied the pulse of the human body, poets who recited verses to the rhythm of the waves, astronomers who charted the movement of the stars. Within these walls, curiosity was not a sin, it was sacred. Everywhere, ideas intertwined like vines. Greek philosophy met Egyptian science. Persian astronomy met Indian mathematics. Knowledge flowed freely, without borders, without pride. Here, the library was not just a building, it was a living mind, breathing and thinking through the thousands who called it home. And yet there was peace. Evening came softly, and the scholars rested among the columns, speaking gently under the glow of oil lamps. The city outside was full of merchants and sailors, but within the library, time stood still. There was only the turning of pages and the endless pursuit of light.
Now, listen to the sound of the sea. Waves roll gently against the harbor of Alexandria, carrying ships from every corner of the known world. Their sails flutter in the wind, heavy with treasure, not of gold or spice, but of knowledge. Each vessel that entered this harbor was greeted not only by merchants and guards, but by the scribes of the library. By royal decree, every scroll, every manuscript aboard was borrowed, copied, and carefully preserved. The originals were kept for the library's collection, while perfect copies were returned to the ship's owner, a quiet exchange that built the greatest treasury of wisdom the ancient world had ever known. The Library of Alexandria became a mirror of the world itself, a place where every idea from every land was gathered and held close. From Athens came the plays of Aeschylus and Sophocles. Their tragedies
whispering of gods and fate. From Persia came the teachings of Zoroaster, light against darkness, good against evil. From India came verses of ancient philosophy, exploring the spirit and the soul. And from Egypt, the oldest wisdom of all, carved once upon temple walls, now rewritten upon delicate papyrus. In candle-lit rooms, translators worked endlessly. They spoke in a dozen languages: Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Babylonian. Their voices mingled like the blending of rivers, each scroll carefully rewritten so that no word, no meaning would be lost to time. The Library of Alexandria was not just a house of learning. It was the beating heart of civilization, where knowledge flowed like blood through the veins of the world. Imagine walking through those vast corridors. Shelves rise like walls around you, scrolls stacked high, their titles written in fading ink. You can smell the faint sweetness of papyrus, the touch of the sea on every breeze. Scholars wander quietly, lost in thought. Some debate the shape of the cosmos. Others study medicine, music, or the motion of the planets. And all around, the soft hum of humanity's endless question: why? Why are we here? How does the world work? What is truth? The Library of Alexandria had no single answer. Instead, it offered the greatest gift of all: the freedom to wonder.
The air is heavy tonight in Alexandria. The waves are restless, and the horizon burns with the orange glow of torches. Something is coming, not the light of knowledge, but the shadow of war. It is the year 48 BCE. Julius Caesar, the great Roman general, has come to Egypt, drawn into the struggle between Queen Cleopatra and her brother, Ptolemy XIII. Their war for the throne has turned the city into chaos. The harbor that once welcomed ships of knowledge now fills with the thunder of warships. Smoke curls above the sea, sparks drift on the wind, and in the distance, beyond the docks, beyond the palace, stands the library. Within its walls, scholars still whisper, unaware that history is about to change forever. As Caesar's troops set fire to the enemy fleet, flames leaped from ship to ship, and the inferno spread to the great warehouses that lined the port. They say it was the wind that carried it, a cruel breath of fate, until the fire reached the city itself. Scrolls, papyrus, parchment, the lifeblood of the library, were no match for the storm of flame. The air filled with smoke and ash. The words of philosophers, poets, and scientists turned to embers in the night sky. Some say it was only the books stored near the harbor that burned. Others believe the main library itself was lost that day. But all agree on one thing: something precious was destroyed. Imagine it, the halls once filled with learning, now lit by fire. The scrolls that once sang of the stars now whisper their last breath, and the scholars, powerless to stop it, can only watch as centuries of wisdom vanish in a single night. Even Caesar himself, it is said, mourned what had happened. For though he conquered kingdoms, this was something even he could not rebuild. When the flames finally died, silence covered Alexandria. The library's marble walls stood blackened, its shelves empty, its dreams turned to smoke. But knowledge has a way of surviving, and the spirit of the library would not end in that night of fire. Some scrolls were saved, some scholars carried their learning elsewhere, and from the ashes a new chapter began. The fire has faded. Ash still floats in the morning light over Alexandria. But where smoke once rose, quiet hands begin again. The great library may have suffered, but the dream of knowledge did not die with the flames. For in the heart of the city, another sanctuary of learning waited, the Serapeum. The Serapeum was more than a temple. It was a twin to the library, a smaller, sacred collection, built to honor both the god Serapis and the wisdom of the ancient world. Within its cool halls, scholars once again gathered. They copied what could be saved, and they sought to rebuild what was lost. Scrolls rescued from the harbor, texts hidden by philosophers and students, all found a new home here. Listen closely. You can almost hear the quiet scratch of reeds against parchment, the echo of footsteps across marble floors. Outside, the market still bustled, the harbor still shimmered, but within the Serapeum, time seemed to hold its breath. There, philosophers like Hypatia's predecessors taught mathematics, astronomy, and reason. The memory of Aristotle, of Euclid, of Eratosthenes, still alive in whispered lessons. And yet, even as the scholars worked in peace, a shadow grew over the city. Rome's influence deepened, religions clashed, new faiths rose, each seeking truth in their own way, each sometimes fearful of the others. The Serapeum stood at the crossroads of belief and reason, a beacon of the old world standing in a new age. Its steps saw debate, prayer, and at times anger. But through it all, the spirit of the library endured, a flame not of fire, but of memory. Imagine a lone student sitting beneath an oil lamp, copying an ancient scroll by hand. Outside, the city hums with change. But here, for one quiet moment, Alexandria breathes again. The centuries turned like pages. The harbor grows quiet. The voices of merchants fade. But deep inside the Serapeum, a few lamps still burn. And there, among the shadows, walk the last guardians of ancient knowledge. Long after the first library was gone, Alexandria remained a city of learning. its teachers still gathered to speak of geometry and stars, of medicine and the soul. They were heirs to a dream born hundreds of years before. Among them was a name that would echo through time: Hypatia. She was the daughter of Theon, a philosopher and mathematician at the museum. From her father, she learned to read the stars, to measure the world, to seek truth not through belief, but through reason. In a world that was beginning to change, Hypatia stood as a bridge between eras, the wisdom of Greece flowing into the dawn of a new age. Her students came from across the Mediterranean: Christians, pagans, scholars, and wanderers, all drawn by her calm mind and gentle voice. To them, she taught that philosophy was not a weapon, but a light against ignorance. Imagine the scene: the sun filtering through dusty windows, scrolls spread across the marble table, and Hypatia's quiet voice rising above the noise of the city. She speaks of motion, of orbits, of the music of the cosmos, and harmony older than empires. But outside those walls, Alexandria was no longer the same. The Roman Empire trembled, faiths divided, and in that turmoil, reason often became a target. The Serapeum, that last echo of the library, stood at the center of growing tension. Many saw it not as a temple of learning, but as a relic of an older world. Crowds gathered, torches were lit once more, but this time not by accident. When the Serapeum finally fell, its statues were torn down, its scrolls scattered to the winds. And yet, even then, some knowledge survived in the hearts of those who learned from Hypatia and her kind. She would not live to see peace. In 415 CE, her life was taken, a martyr not of war or faith, but of wisdom itself. And with her passing, the last true light of the ancient library faded, not in flame, but in silence. Still, her voice endures, through her students, through the words she preserved, through every scholar who dares to question, to wonder, to dream.
The city sleeps now. The waves sigh against the stones of the harbor. The sound of the scrolls has faded, but their spirit lingers, like smoke that never quite disappears. After the fall of the Serapeum and the death of Hypatia, Alexandria entered a long twilight. Empires shifted, faiths rose and fell, and through it all, the memory of the great library became legend. For generations, travelers spoke of it in whispers, a place where all knowledge once lived, where men and women studied the stars, and where the light of wisdom burned brighter than anywhere else on earth. Some said the library still existed, hidden beneath the city. Others believed its scrolls had been scattered across the world, to Rome, to Constantinople, to distant lands beyond the desert. Each fragment, each copy, a tiny ember of that lost fire. And in a way, they were right. for the books of Aristotle and Euclid and Archimedes did not vanish completely. They traveled through time, carried by monks, by scholars, by wanderers, translated, reimagined, and preserved. When the great libraries of Baghdad rose centuries later, they shone with the same light, a light born in Alexandria. When scholars in Europe began to study the stars again, to measure, to dream, to question, they too reached back to the library, even if they did not know it. The dream that began beside the Egyptian sea became the foundation of the modern world. Every observatory, every university, every book, a distant echo of that ancient sanctuary. And yet, there is something more haunting than the fire itself. It is the thought of what was lost, the unwritten books, the forgotten discoveries, the voices that will never be heard. What music did they play? What stars did they chart? What poems, what stories, what truths about the universe turned to ash before any eyes could read them? The library reminds us not only of knowledge, but of fragility, that even the brightest light can fade, if not protected, if not passed on.
The stars hang over Alexandria once more. The waves move softly against the shore. And though the marble walls are gone, though the scrolls have turned to dust, the dream remains. The great library may have fallen, its shelves turned to ash, its halls silenced by time, but its spirit was never truly lost. For the Library of Alexandria was never just a building. It was an idea, a promise that knowledge belongs to all, and that curiosity is the fire that outlives empires. That same light traveled across centuries. It flickered in the lamps of Baghdad's House of Wisdom. It shimmered in the monasteries of Ireland, where monks copied what fragments survived. It glowed again in the minds of Renaissance thinkers, Galileo, Copernicus, Leonardo, all drawn by the same hunger to understand the universe. Even now, in every library, every classroom, every late-night reader searching for answers, Alexandria breathes again. Close your eyes and imagine it, the gentle rustle of parchment, the scent of ink and sea air, the sound of footsteps on marble floors, the whisper of scholars greeting one another in 100 languages. That place still exists, not in stone, but in us. Every time you wonder, every time you learn, every time you share an idea with another soul, you rebuild the library. And perhaps that is the truest legacy of all, that wisdom, like fire, can be carried from hand to hand, never fading, only changing form. The waves still touch the same shore. The same sun still rises over the Egyptian sea. And though 2,000 years have passed, Alexandria still whispers with memory. For centuries, the world mourned what was lost. The great library became a legend, a symbol of knowledge, beauty, and fragility. But legends have power, and sometimes they return. In the year 2002, a new light rose where the old one once stood, the Biblioteca Alexandrina, a vast modern sanctuary built upon the ancient dream. Its walls curve like the rising sun, a disk of glass and stone facing the sea. Inside, quiet light falls across millions of books, not scrolls of papyrus, but stories written in every language of the modern world. A rebirth, not of marble and ash, but of hope. The new library was designed not just as a monument to the past, but as a bridge between worlds, between ancient wisdom and digital knowledge, between Egypt and the globe, between memory and the future. On its walls are carved over 120 scripts, languages from every corner of the earth, hieroglyphs, Greek letters, Arabic calligraphy, each a reminder that knowledge has no single tongue. Inside, scholars gather once again. Children wander between shelves. Scientists share ideas. Artists find inspiration in silence. And once more, Alexandria hums with life. Some say the modern library carries the soul of the first, that somewhere within its quiet halls the voices of Aristotle, Hypatia, and Eratosthenes still linger, that the same curiosity that once filled the scrolls now glows softly on the screens of students late into the night. It is a place where the past and the present finally meet, where what was lost has, in a way, been found again. And if you listen closely, you might still hear it, the turning of pages, the echo of waves, the whisper of forever. The Biblioteca Alexandrina reminds us that, though fire can destroy, it can never erase the human desire to learn, to dream, to build again. The waves are calm now. The night stretches over the sea like silk, and the city of Alexandria glows faintly as it once did thousands of years ago. Somewhere beyond time and ruin, a light continues to burn. It is not the fire that consumed the scrolls, nor the torch of conquest, but the quiet, endless flame of knowledge. The light that lives inside every curious mind, every question whispered into the night. For as long as humanity remembers, we have looked up to the stars, to the gods, to the mysteries of existence, and wondered why. That same wonder built the great library. It drove sailors to cross oceans, philosophers to challenge the heavens, and dreamers to rebuild what was lost. Knowledge was never just ink on parchment. It was the heartbeat of civilization. It was us. Even now, in the soft glow of your room, you are part of that same ancient chain, a seeker among seekers, a guardian of thought, a dreamer keeping the fire alive.
The Library of Alexandria may have fallen, but its spirit survives. In every book you read, in every discovery we make, and in every mind that dares to wonder. And perhaps when we close our eyes tonight, we drift to a place beyond time, a vast, endless library where every story ever told still lives. Scrolls of starlight, pages that hum with memory, and corridors that echo with the quiet footsteps of eternity. There, knowledge does not fade, it only glows brighter. It is the dream that never ends, the dream of light.